Striders are Minecraft's cutest nether mob, but they can also be a quite useful and novel form of transportation, so learn everything about them in this Strider guide. Unlike just about every other mob in the entire game, Striders love the lava. In fact, they don't just like it, they literally need it to survive. And you can even see here with the baby Strider on top of the adult Strider, the difference between a Strider being in the lava and then the more purplish tone of it being out of the lava. Now it's obvious that if Striders need lava to survive, we're also going to find them in the lava oceans. But even our Striders have some requirements to spawn. More or less, they can generate in any lava in the nether as long as there's air blocks above it. But it really doesn't take too much exploring to find them in other lava-filled biomes, not just the lava oceans. So for example, in this basalt deltas, we have an adorable little lava pool that has 2 Striders in it. This one, for whatever reason, has decided to cool off, but the other one's over here in the corner enjoying this sort of lava jacuzzi. So we know the Striders can spawn in lava that's basically anywhere as long as there's air above it. However, as well as that, whenever they spawn in the game, it's in groups of 2 to 4. So for example, when these Striders decided to spawn here, just 2 of them generated into the game. But our blocky nether friends have a lot of differences between Bedrock Edition and Java. So for whatever reason, inside of that version, Hoglins and Striders are both considered passive mobs. Because of this, they have the same mob cap, which means if you're in a Crimson Forest, because of all the Hoglins that generate here, there is going to be significantly less Striders in all the lava lakes you find around here. And as you've probably noticed already, Striders love to spawn irregularly, with 1 in 10 Striders generating in the game with a baby riding them, which will actually eventually grow up. And a surprising 1 in 30 Striders will even generate with the zombified piglin right on top of it. Striders, as you can see, are a reddish color, but they long for the bluish-green warped fungus. In fact, you can see if we're holding one of them in our hands, all nearby Striders are going to try and get as close to us as possible. And mobs don't just do this for nothing. If a mob follows you when you're holding an item, it almost always means that that's its breeding food. And that is true for the Striders as well. So if you want to know how to breed Striders, start by going into the warped forest and picking some warped fungus. Then right click on 2 Striders with the warped fungus, and of course those 2 Striders will enter into love mode and you'll get a baby Strider. These baby Striders are incredibly adorable and will turn into an adult Strider in 20 minutes. But if you think the baby Striders are too adorable to not have more of, you can rebreed the same Striders every 5 minutes, so it's pretty easy to get a big supply. If you're having troubles finding warped fungus for your Striders, here's a really good trick to try to get more. If you find a clearing in the warped forest that has a lot of the warped nylium on it, and you pick some of it up and build a little flat area, or even if you just find a fairly flat area, then you bone meal that, you'll notice there's almost always some brand new warped fungus that appear here. Now you can make a fully automatic sort of flower farm type design that gives you the warped funguses, and that could be a good method if you want to have an insanely large Strider farm, but overall it's also pretty easy just to get more of the Striders by simply bone mealing it like this. Looks like these 2 Striders are ready to breed, and the unfortunate thing is the babies do never end up landing on the head like when they naturally generate. As it is, the Striders' movements are quite cute, but being squished into this very small little cube, the adorable lava-loving baby Strider really does walk around in an incredibly cute and adorable way. You might be wondering after all of this, what's the use of the Strider? Well, I'll tell you, it's quite easy. They can be ridden. All you have to do is right-click on a Strider with a saddle in your hand, and that saddle will be somewhat humorously equipped to the very top of the Strider's head. Now if you just right-click on the Strider with that saddle on there, you are now riding it. But much like when you're riding a pig, there's no way that you can move it around without having a special item. Also, of course, be careful when mounting a Strider, because if you dismount it, like where I am right here, you will not end up in the ground next to you, you'll actually end up in the lava. So we can obviously just get on any Strider we want if there's a saddle, but to actually move them around, we have to craft a warped fungus on a stick. Now, this item functions just like a pig's carrot on a stick, but here's how you make the warped fungus on a stick if you're wondering. You need to start by finding a warped fungus, 3 sticks, and 2 string. Then you want to, in a crafting grid, put down those 3 sticks like this and 2 string to make a fishing rod. Put that fishing rod and that warped fungus in an actually shaped recipe with it needing to be in this corner, although of course you could craft it like this, but it has to be diagonal to the fishing rod. You now have the legendary warped fungus on a stick. Now all you have to do is find a Strider that has a saddle on it, as of course you actually cannot get on a Strider without a saddle, and so of course you cannot lead them with this warped fungus on a stick. Bedrock. A really cool feature of this actually is just like holding the warped fungus will make the striders run towards you, also if you're holding a warped fungus on a stick, they'll still chase you with this item, even though it's not their primary breeding food. So let's find ourselves a strider, throw on a saddle, get on that strider with our warped fungus on a stick, and now something has majorly changed. See, it went from being like this, where the strider is still, or maybe will move around slightly based on what it wants itself, but now with this warped fungus on a stick in our hand, the strider will go wherever we're pointing. So if we're pointing this way, it's going to walk this way. If we're pointing this way, it's going to walk this way. If you're in third and first person, it still will do the same thing. The strider is not going to go backwards for you here, it'll just keep going forwards. But as you can see, the strider sort of has this interesting way of walking around with the warped fungus on a stick, and even the striders around us will literally follow just because we have one in our hand. That's an important thing to remember, is if you are riding around striders, there is going to be a crowd of them that'll generally chase you. Now you can absolutely still lead around a strider if you're not in lava, however it will be incredibly slow, and also going over blocks quickly does not really happen. So as you can see here, we could have a very inefficient form of transport, but then of course back on the lava it actually is pretty decent. Also just be aware, once you've placed a saddle on a strider, if you ever want to get that saddle back, there's only one way of doing it. And let's just say it does not end up ending too well for the strider, but that is the way you get it. The saddle will always drop from a strider upon death, but other than that, you cannot just right click again to take it off. But let's saddle and mount a new strider, holding our warped fungus on a stick. If you're running around on lava, you're going to be going an average of 4 blocks a second, which is not super fast, but definitely a somewhat viable travel option. However, if you're traveling on land, and of course especially soul sand will be very, very slow, you're going to be going 2 blocks a second, of course on the soul sand even less than that. But now that we're up on top of blocks that are not soul sand, this is a lot closer to that 2 blocks a second. Either way, there is a problem with this, because going 4 blocks a second really is not a super viable travel option. So how do we actually speed up the strider and make good use of its capabilities? The first thing you can do is, if you're riding around a strider like this and you right click, that'll consume a bit of the warped fungus on a stick, and then because of that you may go somewhat faster. This doesn't always work, and of course it does consume durability here, but as you can see, we are traveling quicker now than we were before. It tends not to be an immediate change in the speed, but just over time we end up going faster, which as you can see right now, we actually are going faster. Now, if you want to have this happen again, you can reuse the warped fungus on a stick again, but you cannot just spam right click. Now there we just right clicked again, and now it's of course at 98 durability, but this makes it quite nice because that means we can go really fast using our warped fungus on a stick a lot without it just immediately disappearing from overuse. There's another really good method of speeding up striders, and that involves potions. So to apply this effect to the strider, simply throw a splash potion of swiftness at it. We could do a splash potion of speed 1 or a splash potion of speed 2. I think I'll use speed 2. And you'll notice what happens is that strider now has the speed 2 effect. It's not going to be for an incredibly long time, but definitely it's going to help out quite a bit. So for example right now, if we feed the strider and it also has that speed effect on us, we can see it is now going incredibly quickly, much quicker than it was before, because of course that potion of speed 2 is increasing its speed by 40%, but also feeding it with the warped fungus on a stick is increasing its speed, so you can see us just racing through these lava lakes down beneath, which can be really fun, having this massive sort of racetrack that you can ride your striders along on. And the speed effect is not just valid if you're in the lava, it works just as well if you're out of the lava. It just, of course, the strider is slower in general, but if we get off this super slowing soul sand, you can see we're still going fairly quickly with these effects. Now another really great and often overlooked use of the strider is not with its standard transportation capabilities, but actually with its vertical transportation capabilities. That's right, there's ways you can use the strider to basically be an elevator. So to do this though, you have to be careful because it requires the fire resistance potion. And this can be either the splash one or of course the drinkable one, but either way, take that potion now that you have your own personal fire resistance, go into a lava stream like this that you're actually inside of it, and you'll notice what's now happening is that strider is very, very slowly ascending up there. You can see us right here in the lava we are burning, but of course we have our fire resistance so we're safe. And as that strider ascends, so do we, and we're eventually going to get to the top here. Now this may seem like an incredibly useless method of vertical transportation, and in some ways it kind of is, but in some ways as well, utilizing these effects in this way, there really isn't any other way of going up lava, or even getting to certain places in the nether easily, as for example using elytra here can often be dangerous. And so as you can see right here, we've just about finished up using this big flow of lava as a bit of a lava elevator that actually has now worked for us really well. Also, it's really important to be aware when you're riding striders, if you do end up riding off and falling into the lava, that strider will take fall damage. That's right, pretty crazy, right? But they actually do take fall damage if they land and hit the lava. Since if you happen to fall from a very great distance and your strider dies, then of course you would probably die as well if you do not have fire resistance. So be sure to use the strider, just don't do anything too dangerous. But striders are still a really complicated mob, and so I have some more information that you should know about them. There are 4 nether mobs that will not always instantly kill you. That's the hoglin, the piglin, the zombified piglin, and the strider. The strider is the only passive mob in the entire nether. The hoglin and the piglin, which do not always get along as you can see, are both hostile. However, they can both be made to be neutral in either peaceful mode or just by wearing the right armor. And of course the final one is the zombified piglin, which although it will not technically try and harm you at all, if you have any damage go to it that is attributed to your player, it will then become hostile and as you can see, chase after you and try and kill you. So out of every single mob in the entire nether, just our red blocky strider friend is the only one that will not ever attack you under any circumstance. Still dangerous though, because of course the constant danger of lava around it. As you can see, piglins do have crossbows that they sometimes bring around with them, and to make a crossbow, one of the ingredients is string. There's only one place to get string in the nether, and unfortunately that does come from the striders. You might be wondering why is it that Mojang decided to add a mob, which is a valid source of string in the nether, and it literally is just to answer that question of where the piglins got their string. If you're wondering more information about the striders' string drop, because you could technically farm them for this string if you wanted, striders will always drop 2 up to 5 string if they're being killed with a sword that has no enchantments on it. However, with an enchanted sword that has looting 3, it can be then 2 up to 8 string per strider, and 8 string per mob killed is actually a pretty good ratio compared to something like spiders. It's funny enough, these striders and spiders, which both sound very similar, also both drop string. Striders, unlike the player, love lava, and players love the water, I guess. But what's interesting is if we go into the overworld and we try and get a strider into this dimension, let's see what happens. Well, we've got our strider friend into the overworld. We'll now of course just saddle it and ride it with our warped fungus on a stick. And now that we're here, let's see what the strider reacts to in the overworld. It is the same in the end as well. It'll always be in this kind of shivering cold state unless it's in lava. But now let's find out what happens when the strider goes in the exact opposite of lava, which is water. Striders unfortunately are allergic to water, as you can see. It's actually getting pretty hurt in it. It'll pretty quickly run out of the water to not die. In fact, you can see on its health bar there, it is losing 1/2 bar of health per time it's in the water. And this brings up a really good question. What do you do if your strider is injured? Will it ever heal itself? You can see right now our strider is on 1.5 hearts of health. If we breed this strider with another strider, which is of course feeding it a warped fungus, you can notice that that does not help in any sense its health. In fact, giving it warped fungus will not heal it, so it is not like a horse in that way. However, what will definitely heal striders is if you throw at them splash potions of healing. Make sure to center it on whatever mob is most damaged, and as you can see here, this has almost completely healed the strider, with its damage now being at literally just 1/2 heart. And our square friend is as good as new. Now, one trick to keeping striders alive and well inside the overworld is to simply keep them in an environment similar to their environment in the nether. And so for example right here, we've kept a ton of striders in this underground lava lake. These giant lava lakes do tend to be fairly common in Minecraft 1.18 and onwards, with even lava flows to kind of get out of here quickly if you want to, but of course still being aware that striders do take fall damage, and also that you can take damage in the lava when you're falling down it yourself. But either way, you always want to have the striders in as water-free and lava-filled of an environment as possible. Just be aware that even if you're in a beautiful and scenic biome, like this mixture of the Sunflower Plains and also the Cherry Grove biome, there's still a lot of risk to striders, as literally any form of water is deadly to them. So for example, just a splash potion of water will hurt a strider, although it'll only hurt it by 1/2 a heart. Something that's really dangerous is if you're outside with your striders and it begins to rain. Literally every single strider you have that's exposed to the elements will slowly take damage and die, as you can see right here. So don't let a biome's pretty appearance to you be a bit of a deception, because to the strider, any place that it rains is a very dangerous location. So a desert, for example, could be a good biome to keep your striders. And the great thing about striders is that they can even be bred inside of the overworld. So for example, as you can see here under the romantic cherry trees, we now have a new baby strider without the need to go back into the nether to find another one of them. Also, just know whether you're working with striders in the end, the overworld, or the nether, be very careful with the lava that's around there, so I would suggest always having the fire resistance effect active when you're dealing with them. But another method, if you don't have a good source of fire resistance, is a splash potion of fire resistance. See, the great thing with these is if you fall into the lava, just look up, throw it, that is going to land on your head, giving you the fire resistance effect, and then you're safe enough to escape from the lava. The best method to getting out to your striders without dying, of course, is to just place down some blocks, forming a bridge out to where they are. And if you don't have fire resistance, you can do it like this, crouching on a block while walking over. Another thing to consider potentially is to have the fire protection enchantment on some of your armor, so that if you do end up falling into the lava, you're going to be a lot safer. But striders are a very bizarre, mysterious, and even secretive mob. And so because of that, here's some pretty crazy secrets I'm guessing you didn't know about our favorite red walking cube. Every time powdered snow hurts a mob, once the mob is frozen, it'll cause 1 bit of damage. We can tell that right here on us. We're now starting to freeze in this powdered snow, even though it's the nether. Our hearts have turned frozen, and we're going to start taking half a heart of damage at a time. However, if we place down a powdered snow bucket where the strider is, once that strider is starting to freeze to death, like you can see right here, it is going to die insanely quickly. The reason why is that it takes 5 hearts of damage instead of 1 heart of damage, which means 5 times the damage from powdered snow. Here you can see we found one of those times that a zombified piglin will ride a strider, even having that warped fungus on a stick in its hand. And what's interesting about when the zombified piglin rides on this strider is it's the only time that the strider in any way could be considered dangerous, and so you can see right here if we go up to it, we will technically be killed by that zombified piglin. Now if you're wondering why striders were even added to Minecraft, like a lot of people probably are asking, it's because they were added instead of a lava boat, which is actually funny because when players originally wanted horses to be added, Mojang decided to add rideable pigs instead. So it's interestingly enough very similar to what they did before. However, in this case, although I think striders are a really good mob, it is unfortunate that this was added instead of lava boats, because an item like that would just be so useful. But at least our striders are fairly functional, because the original idea behind the strider was that that giant mouth of theirs was actually like a frog's, and it would have a tongue come out and maybe eat certain things at times. Because the original idea with the strider was for them to be very frog-like with that giant mouth, and they were even going to have fins on them, so much to the point that there was actually an unused fin texture that would have gone on the mob to make them look more frog or sort of aquatic-like. Anyway, that is everything about striders inside of Minecraft 1.20. If you enjoyed this strider guide, make sure to like the video, suggest videos you want me to make in the future down below, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!